Hey guys, what's up? It's a late Boy Scout with a video that some of you guys have requested. This right here may be my last box of XM855, 150 rounds. This may be the last box I'm ever able to buy because of the impending ban on this ammunition. I call it an impending ban because, as we're going to read in this document here, which is available on the ATF's website, I'm going to try to cover some of this, not nearly all of it. I encourage you to go to the ATF or atf.gov, download this document, read it in its entirety to understand what's going on. But according to this document, this is impending. It's going to happen. They're going to ban it. They are basically, they're going to have a time up till March 16th where we can comment and talk about or send them letters. But that period is not there to give them feedback on whether or not they should ban it. That period is there to let them know how to best implement it without being too disruptive to the industry and so forth. Yeah, you heard that right. They have no intention of listening to us as far as our feedback is concerned on whether or not they should do this. In fact, let's just jump to that at the very end of the document, because you may not believe me or may think that I'm, giving up on this before it's even happening. By the way, here's the contact information. If you want to just get on the phone, there's a phone number down there at the bottom. If you want to start sending letters, there's an address for letters, fax, email. Feel free to just jump on that right now if you want to. But let's get to the paragraph where they state, I think it is coming up right over here. Okay, ATF is specifically soliciting comments on how it can best implement withdrawal of this exemption. By withdrawal of the exemption, it means the exemption of XM855 as a sporting purpose round. Okay, that's had that exemption up till now, and I'm not going to waste time explaining what I mean by that right now, but that's the exemption that this round has had. And they're asking, how can we best implement the withdrawal of that exemption while minimizing disruption to ammunition and firearms industry and maximizing officer safety? They want your input on how they can best implement all of this. They don't want your input on whether or not they should. It says they will carefully consider comments as appropriate received on or before March 16th, 2015. So you feel free to write them, complain and say don't do it. By all means do that. They should hear from you. They should hear from me. But they're stating in this letter, we're going to do it. We just want to know what's the least disruptive way to do it. Okay, one other point to note is, it says withdrawing the exemption will not place individuals in criminal possession of armor-piercing ammunition. In other words, if you own some of this ammo already, you managed to get some before the ban goes into effect, good on you. You got it. You're not a criminal for having it. But if you decide to sell it, you could very well be in risk of going to jail. So keep that in mind. But let's try to go from the beginning here and kind of cover some of this. They start off with the stated intent here to protect the lives and safety of law enforcement officers from the threat posed by ammunition capable of penetrating a protective vest when fired from a handgun. The Gun Control Act of 1968, as amended, prohibits the import, manufacture, and distribution of armor-piercing ammunition as defined by the statute. And it goes on to say that it has an exemption. The Attorney General has to determine what fits into that exemption, but there's an exemption for sporting purpose ammunition. And they go on to say that this document, what you're reading right now, is the framework, is intended to uphold the requirements of the statute and its goal of protecting law enforcement while respecting the interests of sportsmen in the industry. I don't know what their definition of respecting the interests is, because I don't think that any of these actions respect the interests of me or you. This notice is provided to ensure that the regulated industry and members of the public understand the statute and relevant legislative history and have an opportunity to review and provide comments or suggestions on the proposed framework. So there they say that it's proposed, but they're not really giving us a choice. Again, feel free to write. Moving on, we will cover briefly what the Law Enforcement Officers Protection Act of 1986, which basically is what made armor-piercing ammunition illegal, or armor-piercing ammunition for pistols. Okay, so some history on that. Congress debated about it, talked about the fact that because they were getting complaints from police officers about the potential for armor-piercing ammunition. I don't know how much of a problem it was at the time, but they were complaining about it and approached Congress about it. And so Congress debated about it, said, what can we do? And in a hearing on one of these early bills, Senator Moynihan made clear the intent of the bill was to ban only ammunition that both met the performance standard and was designed to be used in a handgun. Let's read his statement here. Let me make clear what this bill does not do. Our legislation would not limit the availability of standard rifle ammunition with armor-piercing capability. We recognize that soft body armor is not intended to stop high-powered rifle cartridges. That's important to note. Time and again, Congressman Biaggi and I have stressed that only bullets capable of penetrating body armor and designed to be fired from a handgun would be banned. Rifle ammunition would not be covered. That was his statement as they were debating it. Okay? That's not part of the law or part of the bill. That's a statement he made as they were debating it. This gives you some idea as to what their intent was, what Congress's intent was, what they intended to do, okay? This is good to reference. We need to reference this because as we move on, we'll see that the ATF says they care about what Congress thinks, but clearly they don't. Under the original bills, if the manufacturer of the ammunition designed it to be fired from a handgun, it was capable of penetrating body armor, then it would meet the definition of armor piercing. If the manufacturer designed and intended the ammunition to be used in rifles, or if it was not capable of penetrating body armor, it would not meet the definition. When the law finally passed Congress, however, the bill did not include a performance-based standard or limit the definition of armor-piercing ammunition to ammunition designed for use in a handgun. This is important as well. We already discussed and saw what the intent of Congress was, but when the bill actually passed, the language in the bill was not exactly the same. In the bill, it said the term armor-piercing ammunition means a projectile or projectile core, which may be used in a handgun, and which may be used in a handgun, which is constructed entirely excluding the presence of traces of other substances from one or a combination of tungsten alloys, steel, iron, brass, bronze, beryllium, copper, or depleted uranium. Or, second alternative, a full jacketed projectile bigger than such and intended for use in a handgun whose jacket has a weight of more than 0.25% of the total weight of the projectile. Excuse me. So, I don't know of any rounds that match that definition, and green tip doesn't match this definition. Okay, it does not have a projectile core made up of iron. It has a tip. A core and a tip are two different things. Okay, so green tip doesn't match that, number one, and I don't know what does match this. So that's one really important point, but the ATF is completely disregarding that and considering green tip to be this type of a projectile anyway. So we move on, and I'm going to try to just get you the parts that I think are relevant. All of it's relevant, really, but I cannot cover all of it. So we'll move on to talk about sporting purposes and what ATF is considering sporting purposes. They consistently interpreted sporting purpose to include the traditional sports of hunting, competitive target shooting, and skeet and trap shooting. So that's how they define sporting purposes. Now, should they care about sporting purposes? That's a whole other debate. We can't have that right now because we're just covering this piece. In 1986, ATF exempted .556 and XM855 green tip ammunition containing a steel core. They exempted it and said, no, this is mainly sporting purpose. Okay, that's what they determined that it was primarily for. As we go on, what we find out is that the firearm industry developed commercially available handguns designed to use conventional rifle ammunition, which meant that the ammunition for rifles was all of a sudden, previously not classified as armor piercing under the statute, but because there were no handguns that could use it. But as a result of the ability of these handguns, some conventional rifle ammunition now falls within that statutory definition, is now armor piercing ammunition. An example of a handgun that they consider to be, you know, one that can shoot .556 is this one right here. That's my M85 AK. Okay, with the pistol stabilizing brace on it, which I had shoulder fired before the ATF released a letter saying that shoulder firing a pistol redesigns the pistol into a rifle. I did not know that you could redesign something by simply using it differently. Apparently all these pencils that I scratch my head with are now actually head scratchers. And so, you know, I don't know what I'm going to do for pencils now because all I have left are head scratchers. But apparently, you know, that's what this is now too. This is now, or it was, a rifle when I shouldered it. Since I stopped shouldering it, it's now a pistol, I guess. So I guess I redesigned it back into a pistol because I don't shoulder it anymore. Because I gotta be within the law, right? And so I guess, does that mean also that the pencils that I don't scratch my head with anymore, they're back to pencils? Apparently, wow, redesigning things is really easy. Can I patent these things? I don't know if I can. Anyway, but this is now, that is a pistol. And so because it's a pistol, the ATF says that, you know, these armor-piercing rounds now are, since they're now available to shoot through something that is a handgun by their pistol by their definition, then we can now ban it as armor piercing. But that's not where we stop. We have other things to talk about here. ATF must first determine whether such ammunition is primarily intended for sporting purposes before it exercises its discretion to grant an exemption. That analysis also implicates the officer's safety concerns. So they care about the safety of officers when they are determining whether to ban a certain ammunition. Okay, that's the reasoning they're giving, right? And they say that it was designed to address ammunition containing armor or defeating metals that may be fired from relatively small, concealable firearms. Relatively small, concealable firearms. Is that relatively small? Is that relatively small? This is the conflicting logic that is going throughout this document, this framework. Let's call it by what they call it. The conflicting logic, okay? That is relatively small, apparently. I would call that relatively small. That is the Car CM9. That is a relatively small handgun. By many definitions, it's very small. You might say the Smith & Wesson M&P9 is a relatively small handgun. You could say that the Glock 34 is a relatively small handgun. If you wanted to, you could conceal it. You could say any number of 44 caliber revolvers are relatively small, but I don't consider that relatively small at all. Do you? I don't consider that relatively small or a concealable firearm. So they care about the safety of the officers, and they care about it being a relatively small concealable firearm, at least according to this document. Sporting purposes exemption framework. The projectile at issue is primarily intended for use in shooting sports and therefore is unlikely to be encountered by law enforcement officers on the streets. Okay, I'm jumping over a lot of stuff. Guys, read the entire document if you want to get full context. I promise I'm not trying to mislead you on anything like this. Just read the entire thing if you want full context, and you really should read it. It's about half an hour read or something like that. You can get through it. Less than that, probably, if you just want to skim it, probably less than half an hour, but to understand it fully, a good little bit. So they say that, you know, the projectile at issue is primarily intended for use in shooting sports, therefore is unlikely to be encountered by law enforcement. So that's what the sporting purpose exemption would mean. Okay, if it is primarily for shooting sports and not likely or is unlikely to be encountered by law enforcement, then it can be exempt. Is this gun right here likely to be encountered by law enforcement? When they're patting somebody down looking for weapons, are they likely to find that gun on them? If they are, you know, checking out a scene or whatever, and they're like looking around and they don't know if as they're approaching a vehicle or they're approaching a person, they don't know if that person has got a gun on them or whatever, and they're dressed kind of in normal clothing, you know, not a giant trench coat or anything, but they're dressed kind of normally. Are they going to be concerned about them having this gun? I don't know. I ask you guys that. You tell me. One of the main issues raised in this is whose intent should control the analysis of whether a type of ammunition is primarily intended for sporting purposes. Some representatives of the industry said it should be subjective, focusing on the intent of the ammunition manufacturer. If they designed intended it to be used primarily in rifles or target shooting, then the fact that the ammunition could be used in handguns is irrelevant. That's pretty much where I stand. Congress didn't quite fall there, or at least that's what the ATF says. They say, well, we have to go by the plain language of the law. I'll get to that in a minute. The mere availability of handguns capable of using the ammunition made of the enumerated metals creates the potential for diversion to criminals who could use it, once again, in easily concealable firearms to defeat protective vests worn by police officers. I don't know if they're trying to be deceptive or if they're just stupid. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say they're just stupid. Because that is, once again, not easily concealable. Not easily concealable. That's the kind of gun. You cannot get a gun much smaller than this that will shoot .223 or .556. Not much smaller. I think maybe an inch or so smaller, if that. Definitely you can chop that off and then just have the pistol side of it. But you cannot get a gun much smaller than that and shoot .223 out of it and have the sort of magazines that they're concerned about. But that's what they say they're concerned about, right? The availability of these guns and the enumerated metals and so forth and so on. Let's go on to this. ATF is bound, they say, because as they can't say, well, we're going to go with what the industry says. Oh, we're going to go with law enforcement says. Well, we can't go with what these competing people say, so we have to be bound by the plain language of the statute and the statutory framework and guided by the courts, they say. Okay? And then they say, but Congress adopted a two-pronged definition, the first of which contains an objective standard focused on whether ammunition comprised of enumerated metals may be used in handguns. So what they're talking about is congressional intent. Okay? Here it is down here. So yes, they adopted that two-pronged definition, the one I showed you earlier. Okay? And that is on page, there it is. Past it. Sorry, guys. I'm like scanning past this. Should have this on like multiple documents. There it is. Two-pronged document. This one here. This two-pronged definition. It has to do with the core or it has to do with the jacket. Okay? And it has to be, may be used in a handgun. Then the other one says intended for use in a handgun. So because they have this sort of two-pronged definition, the ATF says, well, we don't know which one to choose. We don't know which one to go with. And so they say this. Hence, ATF considers sporting purpose exemption requests the plain text, overall statutory scheme, and clear congressional intent of the law preclude the application of a subjective standard depending only on the intent of the ammunition manufacturer. So we can't go with the intent of the manufacturer. We have to go with the plain text, the overall statutory scheme, and clear congressional intent. But what was the clear congressional intent? They say that they care about the clear congressional intent, but then they completely disregard the intent that they added to the statement earlier. This is the clear congressional intent. That soft body armor is not intended to stop high-powered rifle cartridges. That only bullets capable of penetrating body armor and designed to be fired from a handgun would be banned. This is not designed to be fired from a handgun. No one will argue that it was. It was designed to be fired from a rifle. Rifles have been adapted and turned into handguns that are not the least bit concealable. Those handguns can fire this round. Right? Right? That's right, right? I'm not confused, am I? I mean, I feel confused because this is so bizarre. It's just bizarro world here, but I don't think I'm confused. This video is a really long video. I hope you guys are putting up with this. We're getting to the end of it, though. So they say they care about congressional intent, even though they stated what congressional intent was, and their actions are going against that congressional intent. They are stating again here, characteristics of the handgun or handguns in which a specific armor-piercing projectile may be used will generally determine that projectile's likely use in the general community. Let's say that again. The characteristics of the handgun in which it's used will determine the likely use in the general community. Characteristics. These kind of characteristics, small, concealable, or this kind of characteristic, gigantic and not concealable at all. Which characteristic determines its likely use in the general community? Conversely, when a handgun's objective design is not limited to primarily sporting purposes, such as handguns designed to be carried and concealed, which handguns are those? Oh, there, right there. Designed to be carried and concealed. Obviously, right? Clearly. Anybody argue that? That one is designed to be carried and concealed. It may be reasonably inferred that ammunition capable of use in such handguns is unlikely to be used primarily for sporting purposes. I would agree. This is primarily for defensive purposes. I shoot and train with it, shoot it for fun sometimes, but it's primarily for carrying for self-defense. Agreed, it's not primarily for sporting purposes. By limiting the first definition of armor piercing, oh wait, hold on a second, did we miss something? Did we miss something? I thought we missed, oh, did we miss something? I can't remember if we missed something here. Only readily available handgun can accept cartridge projectile when objectively and primarily sporting. It may be reasonably further likely to use the projectile will also be used primarily sporting. I can't remember. Anyways. By limiting the first definition of armor piercing to ammunition that may be used in handguns, Congress recognized that the threat to officer safety generally corresponds to the type of firearm police officers are most likely to encounter on the streets. Once again, they care about what a police officer is likely to encounter on the streets. Is that this? Or is that something really small that you could slip in your pocket? Which is it? If I tell an officer who pulls me over for speeding or for running a stop sign or whatever, and I tell him, hey, by the way, I am a concealed carry permit holder and I have a firearm on my person, and he says, oh, okay, what kind of gun is it? Will I tell him, well, it's M85 AK, got that on me. It's an AK-47, you know, M85 shoots .223 and .556. Will I have that on me? Or will I have this on me? Which one is he likely to encounter in public? On the streets. On the streets. Which one's he likely to encounter? I think we know which ones he's likely to encounter. The fact that they say they care about that, you know, tells me that this in general is a contradiction. The whole thing, the whole intention here, the whole design, the framework is a total contradiction. We care about what the cops are going to encounter on the streets, but we're going to ban ammunition that can be used in stuff that they will never encounter on the streets. We go on to talk about single-shot handguns and so forth. It says these single-shot handguns are ineffective crime guns because of their limited ammunition capacity. In light of the limited utility of such handguns as crime guns, ammunition which may only be used in these firearms poses minimal threat to law enforcement. Exemption of such ammunition, therefore, is fully consistent with the plain language. It would be fine to exempt that ammunition. In other words, to make it exempt as an armor-piercing round. Say it's fine to own it if it was only going to be used in single-shot handguns or limited capacity. And the logic they use for that is the limited utility of such handguns. The limited utility. All right? The logic they're using for doing this is totally broken. All right? Here we go. While the design of most single-shot handguns shows they're primarily intended to be used for sporting purposes, this is not necessarily the case of handguns with larger ammunition capacities. So the point is, they think about larger ammunition capacity magazines, but they're also talking about ones that have utility, that are concealable. We've seen that multiple times in multiple paragraphs here, that they care about things that cops are likely to see on the streets. I keep moving past this. Likely use in the general community. Okay. Handguns, objective design is, designed to be carried and concealed. This is what they're concerned about. So once again, they actually think that guns like this one are designed to be carried and concealed. This is, again, they're either stupid or malicious. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt and saying that the ATF is stupid. If you're in the ATF and you're a nice person, I don't mean to be mean to you, but I'm sorry, your bosses are stupid. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt by saying that they're stupid, because the worst thing is that they're malicious and trying to just take away ammunition, readily available, inexpensive ammunition, for no reason. Okay? We are almost done here. I've gotten through just about all of this. They bring up the fact that the reason why they're finally getting around to banning this, or the reason why they are banning this now, is because these handguns, these AR-type handguns, were not commercially available. Now the rifle, or the gun I've been showing you, the handgun I've been showing you, is not an AR type. It's an AK type, but you're well aware that there are plenty of AR-type pistols out there. They were not commercially available when the armor-piercing ammunition exemption was granted in 1986. To ensure consistency upon final implementation of the sporting purpose framework outlined above, ATF must withdraw the exemption for 5.56 green tip. In other words, we're thinking about, they didn't just say we're thinking about withdrawing it and we want your feedback. No, they just said we must withdraw. Withdrawing the exemption will not place individuals in criminal possession. I already said that. And it's specifically soliciting comments on how to implement, and I gave you the information for contacting. There it is again. This is important stuff to read and to understand, because you need to know their intent. You need to know their state of mind. What is the intent and the state of mind of the ATF? People, on the internet are saying, well, Obama is banning 5.56, this XM855 green tip ammo. Obama's doing it. Oh, no, Obama's not doing it. Obama's not doing it. The ATF is doing it. Holder's not even doing it. Eric Holder's not even doing it. It's the ATF. He's delegating, and the ATF are just doing it. Well, let me ask you something. Let's say I had a fox and I had a chicken coop. All right, and I took the fox and I tossed it into the chicken coop and closed the door. Who killed the chickens? Did I kill the chickens, or did the fox kill the chickens? When President Obama brought Eric Holder in, he threw a fox into the chicken coop. Okay? He gave power to destroy to somebody who wanted to destroy that certain thing. And he's doing it. So I don't care if you say Obama did it, or Holder did it, or the ATF did it. Obama did it by delegation. Really. That's what happened here. And what can you do to stop it? Well, I would encourage you to write, to phone, to submit your comments. They have stated already that they will listen to us, or they will take comments through March 16th, 2015. But they have also stated that they must withdraw the exemption. So what could we actually do? Well, we can get back in a time machine and keep that guy from getting back in office. Anybody know where we can find one of those? Time machine to make that happen? Well, a little too late for that, isn't it? Guys, that's where we are with green tip ammunition, and that's why I'm saying this might be my last box, the last box I ever get to buy. I hope I'm wrong. Hope that our letters work, and I hope that they'll change their mind. They'll receive enough pressure that they realize that these guns are a minimal threat to law enforcement officers. And the ammunition that goes in them, because of the way that these guns are used and how impractical they are for carrying, its primary design is sporting purposes. The primary purpose of that gun right there, sporting. By their definition of what sporting is, target practice, so forth, target shooting. That's its primary definition. It is not primarily defined, or not primarily intended to carry and to be in public and walk around on the streets and be something that police come across. It's not. It just isn't. It's not likely for that use to happen. And this is a long stinking video, and this is not like any other videos I make, guys. Super non-produced and just kind of rambling. Some of you guys don't mind, but that's where we're at. And I appreciate you watching, and I appreciate any efforts you put forth to try to stop this. If it can be stopped, we should try. We'll see where we go, where it goes, and where we all end up. Whatever the case, any 5.56 ammunition penetrates soft armor. So the whole point of this is moot. They are trying to ban a certain ammunition. It's not going to make any difference whatsoever. Any difference whatsoever. Any round that can go through this pistol will go through soft body armor. And that's the purpose, that's the point they're missing. So in a way, it's making no difference. In another way, they're chipping away at our rights, and they're just taking away whatever little bit they can. All of this is happening as a result of activists running the ATF, running the DOJ. This is not somebody doing their job to maintain and keep law and order and uphold laws. This is somebody looking for loopholes and looking for ways to reinterpret in order to take something away from us that we have every right to. That's what's happening right now, guys. I hope you're on board with that at least. All right, I've gone way too long. Thanks for watching and listening. See ya.